Hello and welcome to MindShifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour. And today is Friday, December 12th, 2025. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free through the tireless efforts of Dr. Michael and Jeanie Ryce. Available on the website at whyagain.org. If you go to that webpage and click on the two words that say Start Here that are located in the upper left-hand corner, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Ryce's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that chapter of the book contains a narrative description and explanation of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet, and it's a tool I've been using to great effect for over 21 years now to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and to turn any negative emotional experience I have into part of the infallible guidance system that each and every one of us has been given. You can also download the actual worksheet process itself. It's a simple PDF file. Click the link, download it, print it off, copy it as often as you'd like, and use it over and over again absolutely free. You can also go to your app store and type in the three words HeartLand Aramaic Forgiveness. And if you choose to do that before you're done typing the word forgiveness, you'll see the glowing heart icon. If you tap on that, it will let you download a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet. It contains an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and it contains a copy of the Dragon Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. We hope people do all of that soon and often, primarily because it tends to improve the quality of people's lives the more they actively apply these tools in their lives. And secondarily, because it tends to prompt comments, questions, answers, and testimonials. If you have any of those to share with us, you can email me at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org. Or you can email Jeanie at jeanie@whyagain.org. That's whyagain.org. And if we get a question or a comment from you, we'll address it on the internet show, and then as time allows, send you a notification about what day and time that occurred, so you can listen back to the archives for your feedback or input. And the only other option is most weekdays we're here from 11 to noon Central. And you can join us if you go to zoom.us and open up a window saying you want to enter a meeting, and the meeting ID for this first hour is 853-2357-4173. 853-2357-4173. If you're calling in on a phone line, you'll be automatically muted, and you can hit *6 to toggle in and out of mute. And again, we greatly appreciate whenever anybody does that, because it makes it infinitely easier for us to live into our intention with this work. The intention we have with this work is to be of service, and that is just boatloads easier to do when we know how these things are landing for you. So we had our support group last night. We've had a week of shows already. We've got stuff we've laid out there from Krishnamurti and his readings and his thoughts, and Alan Watts and his readings and his thoughts. How's it landing for you? What's getting stirred up for you? And or what do you have that we could support you in, either doing a worksheet process or outlining some targeted journaling? Unmute and speak up, or send me a note. I was thinking quite a bit about your note, Susan Bingham, at the end of last show, and just hoping that you can use what we observe in this work and bring yourself back to the observations that whatever comes out of someone's mouth or their typewriter is always about what's going on inside them. It's not about the people around them or the world around them. And as you were relaying, the message of getting a very angry, venom-filled email from someone that you have known in your past and done a lot with whatever was in your power to help this person, I'm just hoping you can remember to use the tools and breathe into the perspective that's, it's pretty obvious. It's like the nose on my face. Whatever comes out of my mouth is about what's going on inside of me. And the more we can practice that almost like a mantra and train ourselves to be aware of the truth of it, the better our lives go, because then we spend a lot less time creating negative reactions to what people say and do. And we spend a lot less time trying to say words and do behaviors that are specifically designed to get someone else to feel differently or to do something differently.
Okay, Tim. You said a couple of really helpful things. First of all, I did understand that this guy is in very bad shape. When he left our place, my son drove him in a U-Haul with all his stuff, all the way from Pennsylvania to Florida. My son drove him. We paid all the expenses. And when he was leaving, he was hugging us and crying and saying how much he loved us. Then he got down to where he was going, and he didn't like the Section 8 housing that he got, a beautiful apartment, but too high up in the building, and he's a little, maybe more than a little, fearful of heights. So this really enraged him, and we thought we had sort of done it to him on purpose. But whenever I get something from him, I had blocked him, but he changed his email address, and you saw the email that he sent. The actual address was also an insult. But I just breathed and realized it was him. But you said two things. You said practice what Pierre Padervand says about blessing the person, which reverses the energy flow right away, just doing that. And then you also said, apropos of our discussion yesterday about hating, you reminded us that we get to, and I was thinking, well, I get to hate, but I also get to do a lot of other stuff, and it also was a kind of a neutralizer. But then I told my daughter, I didn't read it to her, but I told my daughter that I'd gotten this awful email because she's kind of watching out for him down there from a distance, because she's at the cathedral down there, and he has gone into their offices to complain, see if there's any way he could get some justice. He's gone to the police. I mean, it's amazing. So she knows who he is, and she said, Mom, you realize, don't you, that he has a demon? Now, this is a really interesting idea. It seems like a demon in my primitive understanding of what a demon would be. But I also noticed that in Jeanie's book, she talks about demons. And I've been trying to shed some light on that word, and that's what I'd love to have you talk about, if you have any ideas of what demons are.
I do not. All right, just flat out, hear that answer.
Okay.
Right, I do not. It's not an area of expertise for me. It's not an area of comfort or familiarity. And yet, I know there are a lot of people that, and I have some people that have been friends of mine over the years, very bright, very, one's a chiropractor, and another one is a medical doctor, a nurse, and they have very strong beliefs in evil spirits and demons. And so so much so that they will either initiate or request or participate in exorcisms, etc. So there are plenty of places you can go and get some support for the idea that there's a demon here and there's some kind of a demonic exorcism that needs to happen to help free the person. Just recently, I interviewed, her name's going to come to me here in a minute, Emma Bragdon, Bragdon. She wrote the book Spiritism and Mental Health. You might have remember us talking about it briefly a week or two ago.
I do, yeah.
And she has been traveling down to Brazil since 2001, 24, 25 years now, because in Brazil, this process of spiritism, this awareness of non-physical energies and their potential impact on all of our functioning, whether it's a mental health functioning or physical functioning, has been in the culture for a lot of years. And they have psychiatric hospitals where they blend this spiritism with what we would call allopathic medicine. So it's not that they never give patients, the psychiatric patients down there, the same kind of medications that we do here in the U.S. It's just a lot less, and they have other things they do. So, for instance, one of the core principles there is that everybody has some ability to be intuitive. And yet, some people are really just naturally tapped into that intuition. And if they take people who have a natural ability or are naturally tuned into their intuition more than the average, and they give them training, their belief is they can learn to read energies, auras, spirits, etc. And weave that into the actual work people are doing to heal from mental health challenges. So that's about all I have. I've read a few books like that, but it's never really resonated for me. With every struggle that I've encountered, whether it's in myself or the people I work with, has either responded to the kind of work we're doing, or they've gone off on their own and got involved in that. So I can't offer myself as a resource when it comes to that.
Well, and if you do think that what's bothering you is a demon, you're actually blaming something.
Well, and you're creating that experience, right? So the core of this teaching is I'm creating my experience of life,
right,
in each moment by where I'm choosing to focus my conscious awareness in that moment.
Right. So, yeah. Well, I wondered if in your experience as a Roman Catholic, which ended, there might be some residual something or other.
Well, my recollection, as foggy as it can be at times from things that far away or that far in the past, my recollection is I heard next to nothing about anything to do with spirits or exorcism in my Catholic upbringing. I was shocked to watch the movie The Exorcist to learn that they had priests that were, in the movie and talking about it. And so, maybe it was just a coincidence. Maybe it's very common for people in the Catholic tradition to be talked about exorcisms and things, but I don't remember it from my upbringing.
Yeah, I think it's unusual, but I do know that priests practice exorcisms. They do that in the Episcopal Church. It's extremely rare. You have to ask, and then it's some modified, calmer type of thing, it resembles praying over someone at that point.
Well, my view of it is much like the one you just laid out, which is if I believe that someone or something outside of me is causing my experience, I can pour enough mind energy into it, so that's my experience. And you'd have an impossible task in front of you to try and convince me otherwise. The data points are irrelevant. What I believe is what creates my experience.
Well, it takes your power away, and you don't get better, I should think. But I do know I've heard, I must say, of people who have been exorcised and they are helped. But maybe there's another, it's like a triangle. Maybe from a different angle, they feel as if somehow they've been put in enough of a healthy mindset that they can take it from there now.
Well, or it was their belief that someone or something outside of them was causing their pain or fear or sadness, and then they have a belief that this other person, a different person from the outside, has brought them relief by getting rid of this outside event.
Oh, yeah.
And so they create the experience of healing.
Mm.
And yeah, they're healed, and yet what's the truth of what is the mechanism that was either causing their pain or healing them? Is it all just in their belief system? Or is there actually a whole realm of other energies and non-physical consciousness that impacts us? I don't know.
All I know is, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, there might be. All you know is what?
I had two powerful experiences of coming into in one case, it was the living space of a woman who was mentally very disturbed. She presented well, so they wouldn't put her in a mental hospital because she could carry on like a normal person. But there was awful stuff going on inside of her, which would come out in certain circumstances. And before I knew this about her, she invited me to her apartment, and I went in there. I've spoken about this before. As soon as I got inside that apartment, the energy in there was so scary and so dark and thick. I really couldn't wait to get out of there. That's a rare thing. I don't feel that way in most. And the other was a woman who died. We were volunteering at hospice, and one of the patients, perfectly cheerful, sweet woman during her life, but when she died, I kept sort of vigil with her until her family came, and I felt as if I was being assaulted by, I would say, evil spirits. Now, what is that? Is that just me? I mean, those things I'll never understand, but the weird thing was I came home and didn't say anything to Tim Bingham about it. He was also a volunteer. He came home and said, I had the weirdest experience. I was sitting by her bed because he spelled
the same woman?
Same woman, same experience. And he said, I sat with her. Did you sit with her? Yeah. What? Did you notice anything? And I said, well, funny you should mention it. And we compared notes, and we'd had the same experience. So maybe just something really horrible in both Tim and me resonated. Something in us was that bad, resonated from outside, but I don't know, Tim.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't have an answer for you. I'm glad you made it through it unscathed, so to speak.
I hope so. Sometimes you wonder. Yeah, okay, well, interesting.
Well, it's clear, it's really clear for people who are sensitive that there's a lot going on between us as human beings that is not relegated to just the physical energy system and or our logical thoughts about it.
Yeah.
I just finished a session with a young man that trying to introduce him to this work. And near the end of the session, I was bringing up the book by John Cleese. You know John Cleese from Monty Python and other movies, and
I don't, but go ahead. Yeah.
well, then maybe we can't be friends.
What?
John Cleese and Monty Python, how could you not know about? Anyway, British humor, television show, very funny, irreverent, nothing sacred kind of thing. And as an individual, without his career in mind, he was going to group therapy and did it for 7 or 8 years. And at the end of the group therapy, he said to his psychiatrist and the psychiatrist's wife who were running the group, "This is fantastic. Everybody should do this. Why does everybody do this?" And the psychiatrist said, "Well, 2 reasons. One of them is price. Most people can't afford it. And the other one is availability. There aren't enough therapists to create a group that would, be there for everybody." So they decided to write a book to try and share, or John Cleese was really interested in sharing the best of what he'd learned in his 7 or 8 years of this group therapy. And in the book, one of the more poignant stories was that the psychiatrist and his wife they talked about how they would travel and give these seminars, and at the beginning of the seminar they would ask people to put their paper and pens and books down and get up and walk around the auditorium and in a complete nonverbal process say nothing to anybody, no grunts or whatever, completely nonverbal, pair up with somebody in the room that they don't know. They didn't come with them and they don't know them. And the husband and wife psychiatrist would be up on the stage watching people, and then when they got to a certain point where they realized most of the people had paired up, they told the people who hadn't paired up to get in a group on the side, and they asked the people that paired up to start talking to each other about their family of origin. And they had the people in the group that hadn't paired up do the same thing, talk about, the families they came from. And what they discovered every time they did this, people ended up pairing up with people with what Michael Ryce would call compatible bags of garbage. They paired up with people that came from families that had a similar prohibition against certain emotions and a similar range of emotions that they were comfortable expressing. And all of that was done without any words being exchanged to people they'd never met before. Here was the kicker for me. Every time they did that exercise, the people that didn't pair up, that got put into the group, when they started comparing notes, every one of those people was either an only child, orphaned, or abandoned.
Wow.
Now, if you think you're just a physical body, how do you explain that? I don't know how to explain that, except to understand that there's just a lot more going on here than our 5 senses clue us into. And we see it over and over again in therapy when people come in and they're one of their major complaints is that they're in an unhealthy relationship, or they've got a whole string of abusive relationships that they've struggled through the years and they want to break that pattern. They know at a conscious logical level what they're looking for and what they're trying to avoid. And yet they think each time they connect with a different person that the stuff they're able to see and feel is an indication that this will be different and this will be better. And yet they repeat the same pattern. Because these energies that are literally creating their attraction are outside of their conscious awareness. You might say they're invisible energies. So that exists. We don't know exactly what it is, but we can see it function, and we can help people through it with exercises and clarity and turning the focus inside and doing the unconscious work. Do also other spirits exist? Are there conscious entities that are floating around disembodied, and do they have impact on people? I don't know. I don't know the truth of that. I wouldn't be too shocked to find out it's true. And yet, I don't need that as a pattern of explanation, or haven't needed it yet, to satisfy, my need to find a different way to approach something and get different results. I hope that makes some sense.
It does make sense, and it makes me think that the tools that we use, whether those outside forces are real or anything, but the tools will balance and center us so that we become strong enough not to be, we might pick up on something, but we're no longer susceptible to being bowled over by them.
Right, and controlled by it, exactly. Bowled over, controlled, manipulated, gaslit, etc.
Yeah.
So, you felt it was useful? Did you shift over and actually engage in some gentle art of blessing type energy? What did you do to move past the upset yesterday?
Well, it felt like a gut punch, and it was very quick. I felt as if I applied the tools right away. It's just that it seemed ironic and synchronous that we were talking about hate, and I should get a piece of hate mail right then.
Amazing.
So, yeah, it was amazing. The pipe got opened somehow. Just a coincidence, or as my sister-in-law, and this isn't original with her, she used to say, coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous.
That's a good one.
Isn't that a good one?
Yeah, I'm enjoying my mind playing with images of God playing hide and seek.
Oh, good. Maybe you can draw some cartoons of that, yeah.
Well, speaking of images, I had a very strong impulse yesterday, and I haven't made the time to do this yet, but I had a very strong impulse to try and find an image of an elaborate, multicolored, many-colored tapestry.
How come?
Well, because I was hoping that if I had an image like that, and it was a high-resolution enough image, that I could go from the big picture of the tapestry and zoom in and zoom in and zoom in and zoom in to find a thread. Just one thread of a particular color. Let's say, a battle scene comes to mind. Some of these old tapestries that used to hang in castles, and they would have, men and women on horses. And so if you zoom in and you keep going in, you lose this image. You lose the ability to perceive the whole image, but you get very, very clear about what's making up the image, this one particular color of thread in this one particular place. And the impulse to do that was driven by a kind of a felt sense realization that's been growing in me, that we're all just individual threads in this magnificent tapestry we call life. And to create a belief that any one thread in that tapestry is any more important than any other is as silly as thinking that any human being is more important than any other, or any other spark of divine consciousness has more importance than any other.
Two thoughts. First of all, if you get that close to a thread, it is a mess. That's the first thought. The second thought is, yes, if we're all the same, then we're not supposed to do anything that we've been working against, like get attached, which is a big issue in my life, and stuff like that. And I was just thinking, my newest thought is, enjoy it. You're being allowed to do that. Why are you clamping down on it? Just enjoy loving this person. Shut up and just relax. That's one of the happiest thoughts I've had in ages.
Shut up and just relax. You have a very different pattern of, if your happiest thought in ages starts with the word shut up, then we have some different,
Well, I mean,
awarenesses.
No, shut up all the shoulds and the blames and the thinking I'm less than and I shouldn't be doing this, that sort of thing. All those things get to shut up, and I love that.
Right. And there's humor involved in my last comment. There's also a deep truth in it from my perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to shut them up. I just need to see them for what they are and chuckle at them or welcome them to the table.
No, that's good.
I don't have to berate myself for having those thoughts or for having allowed myself to believe in them or pour mind energy into them, giving them more value in my life.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. I can reach at least as good, if not even better, internal emotional state by just chuckling about it, that we've done several times here.
That's very good.
Oh, look at that. I just had a thought that I might have said something that was going to offend Susan Bingham, and then maybe she'll just get angry and never come to the show again. Oh, isn't it silly? I wonder how, maybe that goes back to grade school years. I don't know. But those kinds of thoughts can come up.
Yeah.
And they often do.
Mm.
And yet those thoughts are not what's causing my upset. It's the relationship I choose to create or invest in between me and those thoughts that generate the upset I feel.
Totally. Yep. You're on a roll, Tim.
All right. Well, so thank you for sharing that the email and for sharing the response to it, which I'm glad to hear it was useful to you to step into the Gentle Art of Blessing process with that.
It's good to be reminded. I've made resolutions over and over and over to do that. And I keep it up for a while and then I forget about it. So it's nice to be reminded.
Yeah, it's hard at different times to keep all of these things. I was thinking about it when I interviewed I'm going to get her name here in a minute. Her last name is Bakari. I believe her first name is Rosina Bakari. She's a doctorate in educational psychology, and I interviewed her yesterday, a couple hours after the show, and it went so smoothly that for the first time in a good long while, I invited her to come and spend some time with us live in this MindShifters Radio. And she looked forward she got excited and said, yes, that'd be great. And she looked forward in her calendar. And I believe we scheduled that for January 21st. So we have that to look forward to. Rosina will join us and talk about her book, 7 Exits. And it's essentially 7 things you want to either give up or adjust your relationship to as you get healthier. And what made me think of that right now is because as I had the conversation with her, there were brain cells getting stirred up about, similar pieces of the observations of dynamics having to do with psychology and our upsets and our moods. And they just started popcorn popping and bubbling up in my head. And some of them I hadn't thought of in a number of years. It's hard to keep all of these things top of mind. So I do what I can to be gentle with myself and say, oh yeah, I remember when I used to do that and it worked really well. And I have no idea how I drifted away from it. But I do what I can to remain playful with myself and gentle with myself. And that's serving me far better than the pattern I had previously in my life, which was to be, brutally negativistic about my thoughts whenever I identified something as being off the mark. So we have that to look forward to. Mark your calendars. Rosina Bakari will, and she might actually participate in the MindShifters show before that interview gets published. It all depends on the backlog of interviews for the On Your Mind podcast and how fast they get published. But so that's fun for me, and I hope that the people on the call, whoever ends up showing up on January 21st for MindShifters Radio at 11 o'clock Central, will also enjoy meeting Rosina.
Sounds good. You haven't heard from Christian Sundberg, right?
No, and I was going to send him a note, so thanks for the reminder. I'll send him a follow-up note. The last I heard from him, he said, how about we schedule for the new year? And I said, great, just pick a time and I'll make it happen. And I didn't hear back, so I'll send him another note.
Good.
So, thoughts, comments, questions, answers, soliloquies. We have a nice array of people on the call. How can we support you? What's on your mind? What's been stirred up as we talked about either Krishnamurti or Alan Watts or what Susan was just talking about? How can we support you? So Linda looks unmuted. Have you unmuted on purpose?
Yes, thank you. I am just chuckling all the way through this conversation. I just love when you two get together, and it's an amazing co-creative process that happens between you two, Susan, you and Tim, Dr. Tim, and I just wanted to tell you how much I enjoy what you're saying. And Dr. Tim, I had sent you an email about how I tend to bug people until they give me some kind of response. And I was thinking about that in relation to your conversation about reminders. I am always so grateful when someone reminds me, because I just totally spaced a walk with a friend that I'd set up and then forgot that I had, Larry and I had both had doctor's appointments in Eugene yesterday, and I was driving, and I totally forgot to text her and tell her, email her and tell her, oh, the walk is off, because I totally forgot about this. So I was kind of flagellating myself about, here I do it again. And when I apologized with her, and you just all put it in perspective, the whole conversation has been delightful, and I just really appreciate both of you. I'm very grateful for this show and all of the interactions that we all get to participate in.
Well, you are most welcome and deserving. I'm glad that you're finding it useful.
I'm putting it into practice as best I can. Everything I'm learning, and I need multiple reminders because I keep forgetting, trying to juggle balls, and if I just laugh when I drop one, I like that. Chuckle over it.
Yeah, if you can, it's recommended. If you can get yourself to chuckle, What's the line that Michael Ryce says about angels? They can fly because they take themselves so lightly, that kind of thing.
Right.
And in the way of mastery, it clearly says over and over again that the Creator creates just like the Creator. And the Creator thinks lovingly, respectfully, patiently, and playfully. And in a number of places throughout the way of mastery, it encourages us to just lighten up. And it says in lesson 3, of course, you're going to have anger come up. Just stop justifying it to yourself. Stop thinking that it is of value. It's there, it's a real thing, and yet it is not the truth. And when your anger's up, you won't be able to see the truth because the distortions in perception that are woven into our system. They talk about, and I talk a lot about how anger and hostility are like distorting filters in front of my perception that block my perception of life as much as my hands right now are blocking my perception of the computer screen that you're all on. And the best use for that energy rising in me is to treat it as an alarm system whose purpose is to let me know that what I'm doing with my thoughts in this moment is not accurate. It's off the mark. Now, what's the actual truth? I don't know. And yet I know that if I'm in a state of intense emotion, whatever my mind is telling me about what the truth is not the whole thing. At the minimum, it's not the whole thing. It may be completely wrong, or it may be only partially true. So what should I do? Get upset because I have this distorted perception? No, relax, be gentle with myself, use whatever tools I have to dismantle the hostility and negativity, because that will take me many steps closer to being able to perceive accurately, or what Michael Ryce calls the spiritual faculty of true perception. And then, once that faculty has been restored, then make a decision about where I want to go, what I want to do, what I'd like to say to somebody. It's this system that has been created, that each of us has stepped into as a consciousness, is loaded with these things we call emotions. It's loaded with these physical impressions. It's loaded with what we come loaded with as consciousness, with certain behavioral traits and tendencies. And they're all there for a reason, if there's any sense to this life. And so one of the most important things I've done over the years is help myself question what I used to think all of these things were for and whatever role they were playing. And as I do that, guess what happens? My life gets better. So I keep doing it. And I use my emotional upset as simply an alarm system to get me to take a breath and turn inside and start asking myself, how am I creating this? Can't do that if I'm taking myself too seriously. I can't do that if I believe the indoctrinations that I was programmed into about how I'm a sinner and I have no worth and I'm going to have to atone for my sins, and etc. That's way too heavy and serious for me to enjoy it. So the invitation exists throughout this work, but especially in places like the way of mastery, to just lighten up, play, be joyful, appreciate the gift of life. And Krishnamurti would call us to just soften that another series of ways by questioning and bringing direct observation to the forefront of our minds, moment to moment in our life, to be awake, to be clear, to be willing to question everything we've ever come to believe. And again, whether you pick it up, I mean, I read a section from Krishnamurti's book, I think it was the day before yesterday, and Susan Bingham's response to it was, it's so heavy, he talked all about, remind me, which word was it? He either talked about evil, yeah, Susan Bingham heard him say the word evil a lot. He talked a lot about evil, and when we went back and reread it, he was using the word hatred. And he was using the word hatred in a very unique way it's unique to Krishnamurti in my experience of writing. He wasn't using the word as a representation for this intense, venomous energy I have that's directed at someone or something else. He was using the word more the way Michael Ryce talks about it from the ancient Aramaic, meaning that I'm cutting myself off from or separating myself from something. And of course, when I start doing that, I create ripple effects. I create consequences. Right? The whole idea that Satan, the word Satan, comes from the word sat, or the S sound, and it means to slide, fall, or cut off in the ancient Aramaic. And so the process of Satan is to separate oneself from the truth of oneself or from some part of one's experience. And only when we are whole and appreciating the whole does our power flow. When we cut ourselves off from, or we try to hide from what Jung would call the shadow side, or the negative, what we've labeled negative in our experience, we cut off our power. We hamstring ourselves, so to speak. And so can we, as Krishnamurti would call us to, just sit with it in observation? All of the thoughts that led us to do this or that, all of the memories we have about this or that, all the meanings we're giving to this set of experiences or that set of thoughts, can we just slow down and observe? Like Krishnamurti asked the woman in that conversation, have you ever just observed the process inside of you that leads to this thing you're calling hate? And of course, she had never thought about that. She'd never observed it. She'd never even thought about slowing down and just watching how she goes from whatever mood she's in before she's in hate into the mood of hate or the energy of hate. So, there you have it. I've been rambling, and I'm not even sure I made sense. But lighten up.
Okay, I will. And I love that word, because really when we say I will, that's a very powerful statement, isn't it? I have a couple of thoughts, too. When you said, I know it's dangerous, but I love it. I love the rabbit hole, because I get amazed sometimes where I end up. It's like a labyrinth. Anyway, I wanted to share with Susan. You said something when Dr. Tim mentioned his imagery of some sort of mandala or tapestry, and the individual threads. And you made one of the things, thoughts you had, the three, is you said, oh, it feels like a net. And the way you said it made me think of a butterfly net, like you're going to be trapped. And I was thinking of a safety net. So I thought I'd share that because that's fun for me. Around the kiddies' table with cookies and milk. And then the other thing I thought of was when I went to Eckankar, they had their personification of Satan was from one of the Hindu perspectives, and the dude was called Kal Niranjan. And everybody was so afraid of Kal Niranjan. But when someone had finished their work, spiritual, emotional, mental, physical work in this dimension, when they had gotten to the point where it was time to graduate, so to speak, Kal Niranjan was actually the dude in charge of the exit door, the portal out of the suffering and misery and all of the drama and trauma of this dimension. And so if a person had done their work and Kal Niranjan stopped them at that portal, you can't go, you can't leave, they would just say, oh, yes, I can. It's like that Guy Finley's story. And Kal Niranjan had to get out of the way and let them go through. I just thought I'd share that myth with you, just to put a little different twist on things. Not someone to be afraid of. Is someone to honor for the position that they took on or they take on it or whatever, the personality or something, and they have a job to do, just like all of us, a purpose.
All right. Well, I had a couple thoughts there, and one of them just flew right out of my head. And yet, if you can get to the point where you know you've done your work, you have that inner knowing, it is, the true inner knowing is not shakeable. It's unshakable. It's as solid as, Gibraltar. And so here's this idea in what you're saying of another teaching from another culture that says it's an inside job. Right? There's no gatekeeper that can keep you locked in. It reminds me of the book I was listening to, The Girl Who Baptized Herself, and it's the story of Paul and Thecla, Theclac. And this is a young woman who just simply refused to abide by the cultural, quote, rules and decisions. And that was such a threat at the time. She didn't go out and steal from anybody or stab anybody. She simply said, I'm not going to marry a person you told me to get married to. I'm going to live my life in devotion to the good, the holy, and the beautiful. And in response to that, the culture at her time said, well, I'm afraid we're going to have to kill you. And no less than 3 times in her life, according to the story, she was sentenced to death. It's okay, right? She says, okay, do what you need to do. I'll just do what I need to do. Imagine the clarity. Imagine the practice of the strength that's come from practicing turning inside oneself that you would need to be able to just peacefully accept a death sentence. That's what we're being invited into. It's all an inside job. Michael Ryce would say, it's all smoke and mirrors. When my mind wants me to think that I'm angry because X, Y, or Z, anything outside of me, None of it is true.
Which reminds me of what you just said about Michael Ryce talking about the true discernment. And on the immediate picture I have was being in a Rahma, in that beautiful alignment with what is and how it functions. And just the perception gets straightened out. The mind's thinking gets straightened out. Probably even the physiology gets straightened out. With that, I just thought of that. It's just like true discernment is just allowing the mind of the divine to be our North Star.
Yeah, and
24/7,
I think there is
365.
a lighter, a more specific version of that contained in the Dr. John Sarno work. And the documentary that you can watch for $5 or whatever on Dr. John Sarno through the website, All the Rage, all one word, All the Rage DOC for documentary.com. And there's a specific case of what you're talking about here. And I think there's every reason to believe that if it can happen at that level for back pain or shoulder pain or hip pain, that same dynamic can be functioning at physical, mental, and emotional levels way beyond what we've imagined. So, if there's truth to that and I want to explore it, how do I explore it? I turn inside. I do more of an internal practice, which means I don't spend quite as much time reading books and discussing things with other people. I spend more time inquiring into myself, asking to be shown the hidden part of my own. It's like the forgiveness pattern. I'm turning inside and practicing allowing what's in there to speak to me, allowing myself to see things I have turned away from and actually hidden from myself for decades at times. And if there's anything we can do to support anybody on the call or anybody who's hearing this tape after the fact in doing that or understanding the value of it and or removing the roadblocks to that within you, please let us know, because that's the primary purpose for being here, is to help each of us individually get reconnected to our internal source of wisdom. Don't, like Krishnamurti would say, please don't follow anyone or anything. Don't follow.
Which is my sweet thought when I think of Dr. Sarno and all the rage, because we don't even have to be a believer. How sweet is that?
Yeah, it's
a believer of any religious path.
Yeah, it's a system and it works. And if we can understand how it works and start to use it to our advantage, then my experience has been my life gets better. So, taking us to the end of the hour, thank you, Celinda, for your comments and questions. Thank you, Susan, for your comments as always. I'll remind us all that we come from love. We're made of this energy of creation that some call love. We actually are love, and everything else is false. And I'd like to share the observation that's been growing in me lately, that every single time life did not go the way I thought it should, as I waited around and practiced patience, it always turned out better than I ever thought it could. Have a wonderful weekend. Blessings.